Welcome to this episode of Threading Thoughts, where we will be talking about rural healthcare and its challenges. Rural residents often encounter barriers to healthcare that limit their ability to obtain the care they actually need. In order for rural residents to have sufficient access and necessary and appropriate healthcare services, it must be available and obtainable in a very timely manner. Even when an adequate supply of healthcare services exists within the community, there are many other factors to consider in terms of healthcare access. Some of them being the financial means to pay for these services, the means to reach and use these services, confidence in their ability to communicate, and the fact that they will receive the quality care from the medical professionals. The challenges are not only on the patient side but also on the provider side, with a constant training of doctors and nurses required. Technology has come to the aid of these rural healthcare centers, but there is still a long way to go. Pawan Kaipa is presently the UP State Manager at Grameen Healthcare, a rural based health tech startup. He has previously worked in the not profit and corporate healthcare settings, apart from dabbling in sectors as political consultancy, education, rural development, and the like at the grassroots levels.
So thank you, Pavan. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really nice to have you. I know you're incredibly busy, especially in this very challenging times for providing rural healthcare. And of course, it's very many challenges have been magnified now. So thank you so much for taking time off.
Thank you, Mridula. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me start off with, let us try and understand a little more, maybe from your perspective. So, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've noticed in rural healthcare, not only from a citizen perspective, also as a service provider, so from both?
Challenges are multifold, definitely, from the rural point of view. And especially from my perspective, coming from a very urbanish background, urbanish outlook, to working in a rural setup. Initially, it was in Gujarat and now in UP. So basically, coming from an urban outlook and urban background to work in a rural setting, initially it was in Gujarat and now in UP. I think their challenges are multifold. Uh, Firstly, say from a citizen's point of view, now public healthcare as such is not viewed with as much as trust or as much as confidence as public what we would like. And private healthcare providers are very few and far in between. And more often than not, you notice your RMPs or your Chula chaps at your call. So they are prevalent in every village. And when you go from a private provider's point of view, you want to explore the market, you want to reach out to the public, and you are in particular new to the whole ecosystem. But those RMPs whom a lot of times we look down at with disdain, saying that they might
Right.
not be licensed, might not be providing the authentic or genuine medicines. But as a matter of fact, they have been sitting in that particular region or village for 10, 15, 20 years, so on and so forth. And they have gained the trust of the local public in their
Correct.
particular region, right? So we are a general from a provider's point of view, we cannot rush them aside, saying that these people are not genuine and could not be considered. There may be the methods are not as scientific as what the rest of the medical community utilizes,
Right.
but there are people who are very integral to the ecosystem right now, and very integral to how the general villager would react to or would obtain any healthcare service. From a citizen's point of view, challenges obviously one is accessibility. Now your nearest, most of your villages, your nearest sub-center or your PHC would be at a minimum of 10 kilometers away, and this is just at the minimum. Uh, for him to access quality healthcare, either he would have to go to a PHC or PHC or a district hospital, which for a lot of time is not possible in every case.
True.
So accessibility and obtaining quality healthcare is always a question. And these challenges have been exaggerated over the past 1.5 years, especially because of the pandemic. And during the first wave, obviously, it didn't hit the rural area as much as it hit the cities. So it was
Yeah.
viewed as more as a Shahar ka road. It is something which is restricted to cities. Unfortunately, the second wave hit the villages, hit the rural side a lot more than probably what we would expect. So the seriousness, the general, the lack of apathy, the general lack of quality in public health services, unfortunately, hit an all-time high during the pandemic, or during the second wave. So these issues were faced by citizens, and from obviously from a provider's point of view, it exposed a lot of these shortcomings, be it your private healthcare, be it your public healthcare, it exposed a lot of those shortcomings during the second wave. So challenging times, definitely a lot of challenges thrown up, a lot of problems thrown up. But I think the pertinent question is, can we use this as an opportunity? I wouldn't say as an opportunity. Can we use this something as
As a learning.
as a learning or a motivator to fix the deficiencies that exist within the most of the public health system?
No, that's absolutely true, right? We were so happy that, this, especially COVID was contained in a particular region. The rural regions were hardly, were left untouched rather. But the second wave completely topsy-turvy, and I think that was such a shock and a very good, unfortunate learning, but a very good learning nonetheless. So I think that makes a huge difference. And as you correctly said, there's this balance between respecting traditions, healthcare traditions in rural India, while bringing in new innovations or changes, or perhaps prescribed medications, or different kind of a stream of medication in healthcare. So that must have been quite a challenge, though, initially, but it's more acceptable now. Is that how you feel?
What's
The balance between, the rural healthcare, the people living in rural villages, and now they're more accepting of different forms of healthcare, right? And maybe different types of medications. Is that something that's still pushed back, or are they completely willing to take in medical literature and accept it?
It definitely is still a challenge, still a major challenge in accepting your allopathic or your MBBS doctors and accepting that line of treatment compared to what your RMP or your Pulacha could have done in your days. So these are challenges which still exist and which will continue for definitely some more time. It's not something which is going to go away very easily. And right,
it takes a time, a while.
It requires a lot of change, also a lot of acceptance from the public. So there's something which is not going to go away very easily. Something that we have to work around with. It's not something we can do away with. It's something we have to work around to find out a better way of provision of this healthcare.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also the fact that, they have to be very careful on mixing, say, they might have medicinal herbs and other things. To mix those with allopathic medications, the side effects could be quite severe. So these are all, terms and conditions that you have to work out when you work in a rural healthcare setting, right? So that I'm sure is something that you've also kept in mind. But, talking about COVID particularly, this has been very difficult, a year and a half or more. So what were your, the biggest challenges of mass vaccinations? Because we also had a lot of people from urban settings go into rural areas, thinking that was much safer or, much easier to deal with. So what were some of the biggest challenges you had in mass vaccinating, especially in rural India?
So in mass vaccination, I think there are a lot of important points that we have to consider also, since that it is an ongoing exercise by the government and various players involved. I think initially, especially if you look at 18 plus the age group, the entry point was very tall initially in terms of you had a compulsory registration which had to be done, which to a large extent has been removed right now. But initially, that was the major, very tall entry point which you had, and which kind of restricted a lot of your rural flow to register and willingly get the vaccination done. That is slowly being taken care of. Apart from that, I suppose there are a lot of, we all know there are a lot of myths, there are a lot of stories which keep floating around about certain incidents have happened. There's no denying about that. But those sometimes they get exaggerated a lot more when they go into the villages, and people tend to avoid that for a lot of reasons. I think generally in terms of awareness and general sensitization, we need to do a lot more. Presently, what I see is that we are restricted to our the general awareness techniques that are being followed in terms of putting a banner, doing an announcement in your village, telling people that this lot and this lot is aware. But is it there is no enforcement of it
Right.
in a soft manner from the officials, which is required now. If we leave it to our public on our own that you have a choice to get vaccinated or not, then there are a lot of our population will get left out.
Right.
I think the public healthcare system has to become a lot more proactive. I just give you an example of my own vaccination. Now, when I registered on the COVID app, I took in the morning slot, the 10 to 11 a.m. slot, and I went to the center, and there was a lot of crowd. There are 150 people just assembled there with no social distancing, very little of protocols being followed. So that whole process took 1.5 2 hours just to ensure you stand the line and get your vaccination done. So for my wife, now later on the week when I wanted to get her vaccination done, I chose the last slot, which was I think between 1 to 4, thinking that okay, it will be less crowd. So we went to the center, there was no crowd at all. So and you need 10 people for them to administer a vial.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
in that particular slot, only 6 people turned up.
Uh-oh.
So we were refused and we were asked to come back the next day saying, no, we cannot open the vial now. You can go on wastage. So you have to come back the next day. So what is surprising in this whole exercise, what I realized is when we spoke to officials, they're saying that, okay, some so-and-so people have registered, but they're not turned up. Why don't you just call them up and ask them to come? So the people sitting at the center don't have a database of the ones who are registered on the COVID app. So probably the people who are registered on COVID goes to a central database, but it is not provided to your people sitting at those respective centers.
Absolutely.
So they would. It is natural for it to be a 10 to 15% drop off on a day-to-day basis. Now, if that follow-up does not happen from your public health official or your worker, vaccination worker sitting at that center, then you would probably these people will keep getting left out, and they would not take an initiative to take the whole trouble of registering themselves and coming to a center, ensuring the vaccination gets done. So, in these such instances, probably we are able to find out where are the loopholes in the system and what more can the public health system do? How can we become more proactive to ensure people actually get the vaccination done? Leaving it to their will and fancy probably will not work in a country as complex as India, right? So
Right.
certain amount of proactivity, certain amount of following up is required from the government side to ensure that everyone gets the vaccination. So I think challenges exist a lot, and rural areas, especially what we see in the urban center, is a lot more magnified when it comes to rural center. Also because of availability, because of the general distance required to travel, and so on and so forth.
And very well articulated. The reason I'm saying is what happens is there has to be, of course, people from the villages themselves, stakeholders in the village who gently push perhaps everyone to get vaccinated. They themselves have to believe in this cause. But, that's a ground up. But I also think a top-down approach of better connectivity, some sort of a better network and people following up and making sure it's a little more efficient system. As you correctly mentioned, if you don't have the number of people who have registered with their names and contact information, you will not be able to contact them even if, you need to contact them in an emergency. So it doesn't make much sense if you're trying to get people into a center and not have the wherewithal to actually reach out to them. So I think those are, as you said, when you experience it, you start realizing these loopholes that seem to get a little bigger. And then these things slip through the cracks. And then you see the issue is if I don't get my vaccine today, tomorrow I might not be inclined to take that day off or spend that time. So then I might push it to another day, and then the other day might never come. As we know, that's one of the biggest issues when you push something later on, you never know whether that day is going to work for you or not. Or you might have other.
Especially the particular point you mentioned, especially for a villager who has to take a day off, who cannot attend to his field or cannot do his daily wage work. He has to take a day off, get his vaccination, and he knows that there are symptoms for a day or so. He might get some fever or something of that. So for him to take the day off again and just to convince himself that I have to go and get the vaccination done is a long drawn process again. So
And it's a loss of their livelihood, which is what would worry them more, because they depend on it day to day. So it's not that simple for them as well. And so, talking about the way we can improve, perhaps, do you think behavioral changes and even technology, for that matter, can they help in ensuring a bigger reach of, general healthcare, not only just for COVID, but for general healthcare? Do you think it can help?
definitely, definitely. Technology, the first thing when we talk about healthcare technology right now these days is telemedicine, right? So telemedicine has obviously taken a front seat over the past 1.5 years. Lot more focus has been brought up to its benefits, how more it can be improved on. But telemedicine has taken a start, but obviously a lot more has to be done to ensure it gets further ingrained into our system. And what is important is that telemedicine has to be integrated with our existing system. For greater cost efficiency, for better health outcomes, the existing sub-centers, PHCs, CHCs, how can they further utilize telemedicine?
Correct.
Or telemedicine to get accepted by a layman in the person sitting in the village or sitting in the city. A lot of behavioral change is required. Because for any villager or for anyone, in fact, if you do the option of consulting a doctor via phone call or via video call versus physically visiting him and he examining him,
Right.
taking a vital, so on and so forth. But natural that everyone would want to physically visit the doctor, right? So the behavioral change of ensuring that even if a doctor is not available, you are able to consult the doctor via a video conference, via a telephone call, and ensure that your treatment is complete. Would require a lot of effort and time. And that is not something which probably we can expect that by the time the pandemic, so on and so forth, settles, that the whole thing will take root. I think it will require a lot of sustained effort from all the stakeholders involved. And I think time will decide that how further this gets integrated into our existing system. But telemedicine is such a probably useful tool because right now you see most of our a lot of centers, a lot of public health centers are not probably functioning as much as how they should be, probably because due to doctor availability or staff shortage and so forth. With telemedicine, if assisted telemedicine is used, even if people are not completely comfortable with telemedicine, assisted telemedicine, in which the vitals at least checked, conveyed to the doctor is able to prescribe the right course of treatment. A lot of our big gaps in the system can be addressed.
Absolutely. I honestly believe that for most people, when they walk, especially when they're sick or they're unhealthy, they walk into any health center, it's reassuring to see a person there. No matter if they are a qualified doctor, it's more a question of, somebody human who can interact with you, perhaps understand what you're going through or be sympathetic. I think that is also part of the healthcare system that we require. Of course, the expertise can always be delivered, and given that AI now is a lot more, I think, present in healthcare itself. There are a lot of things that can move faster or be more efficient because any doctor is also, they have very limited time. So when you reach out to a doctor through telemedicine, he might have his own clinic or he might be in a completely urban center, which might be an issue. So AI and technologies help. What about behavioral changes for the not only the staff but also the people coming? Do you think that they would be actually comfortable, not just getting the vital statistics, but more than that, looking and talking to a doctor over a laptop or a screen? Does that require a lot of behavioral change in rural India?
Definitely, a lot more than what it would require obviously in a city. Because a city folk obviously he is at least exposed to technology, exposed to all the different changes a lot more compared to a person sitting in the village. So the moment you tell him that नहीं आज से डॉक्टर नहीं है आपको सिर्फ अपने डॉक्टर को लैपटॉप से देखना पड़ेगा तो there will obviously be a sort of resistance initially, which I have also personally experienced. And people are not convinced in terms of you talking to a doctor over a phone or seeing him over a screen is still not very reassuring to him. He would prefer seeing his local RNP paying the 20 rupees and that fellow comforting him saying that you are fine
Right.
and getting those medicines for 2 3 days. He would prefer doing that rather than probably seeing a person, seeing a doctor on the screen. And obviously, doubts creep to mind. This is genuine. This is not genuine. Which is natural, especially when it's in the starting phase. So a lot more effort is required to ensure that telemedicine as a whole gets accepted slowly. It's on the path towards acceptance, especially in the rural side.
So that's,
And
yeah, absolutely.
as we generally see, technology, with telemedicine, with AI, generally tends to get reflected in your private health organization first, and it gets accepted, it gets streamlined, it gets completely integrated in the system. But for public health system to efficiently integrate itself, that would take a lot more effort and focus from all stakeholders.
Absolutely. And I think having somebody in a rural healthcare center sort of sit next to them and walk them through when they're talking to a doctor might reassure them more, because they feel that there's a physical person next to them. They might not understand certain things the doctors ask, or they just feel that, even though it's a video call, you're still away, right? It's very virtual. So it must be quite difficult for that.
Probably assisted telemedicine, in which, say, a person, a villager walks into this sub-center. He has a nurse who's the nurse takes his vitals, takes his BP, sugar, takes any other point of care test required, and connects him or her to the doctor. And wherever required, intervenes to explain it further, to further break it down to the person, could help the system much more.
Absolutely. But I come to a very, very, I think, critical issue that you might face, or at least that's what we've heard. The churn and the training of personnel, especially in rural centers. I mean, how many nurses and doctors who are not perhaps from that village or from that area are willing to go and work in these telehealth centers? How do you retain them? Because once they're trained or they have this a period of comfort level, they can move to a larger urban setting and perhaps earn more. So that is something that is a huge challenge always. But there are two perspectives. Of course, one is a general challenge. The second is COVID. How has that particularly helped or affected this in a positive, negative way?
So the point you mentioned, hiring and training of doctor, paramedics, anyone connected to the healthcare system is definitely the biggest challenge the rural healthcare ecosystem faces. There's no doubt about it. And hiring is one part of it. To ensure their training and their continuous training happens, that is a separate challenge also. So hiring doctors, first aid doctors as such, to convince them to come and work in a rural setting, especially if they are not from that particular region or district, is almost next to impossible in these times. Any doctor after graduating with the MBBS doctor, with the EMS, with the Ayurvedic doctor, someone who's done a master's, for them to come and work in a rural setting is the least on their priority.
Right.
Right. So one in terms of probably the exposure they get. The second is the type of remuneration and so on. So it requires a special kind of motivation for a doctor to come and sit in that particular region, say that I am going to do service here. Which, but naturally, we cannot expect everyone to have that intention, right? So I think what is important is training doctors, paramedical staff from that particular region. If you are able to, you are opening a sub-center or PHC or CHC in this particular region, you need to hire from that particular district. If you don't, then it's next to impossible to get someone to be able to sit in that particular region. And continuous training, how do you incentivize? Now, I think what the major difference between our private system and the public system is one in terms of the incentives, right? How do we further incentivize your doctors,
Exactly.
your staff
Exactly.
to work in a rural setting, to continue working in a rural setting? So that is something which has to be probably thought of a lot more, and some sort of better system has to be devised to ensure that they continue working.
Because it's not simple, trying to incentivize them to stay, because the entire priorities and setup has to be changed for a lot of people. Although I think in a very strange way, COVID has actually helped that, because most of them have rediscovered their roots, or found more rural areas which are quieter, better to work with, and suddenly they feel this work from home as well, enables this sort of a setup. So, do you see this these major changes happening, given that educated, tech-savvy youth from urban centers are moving towards rural areas, or do you think this is just a fad that this will leave?
From a healthcare point of view, from the healthcare person point of view, I don't see too much of a change. From what I have noticed, I may be wrong, but I think what is something that we have to consider is, one is ensuring that it existing staff continue. We need to motivate a lot more people to join the rural public healthcare infrastructure, and also involve the existing stakeholders, existing players sitting in the village. How can they be further involved? Because right now they are being viewed in a very negative lens, or a very
Right.
a lot of disdain, saying that they are not scientific enough, let us not involved. But how can, at the end of the day, they are also providing healthcare. They are also serving your public, your villager who requires the treatment from the village. So how can they be involved? Not be directly as a doctor per se, but in some sort of setting, how can they be involved to ensure that your first point of contact? I think what COVID has also taught us is that the first point of contact, like we would have expected your primary healthcare system in the country to be the first point of contact to assess whether a person has a fever or not. If he has a fever, then are there any other symptoms of COVID? Can the treatment be taken further on? But a lot of probably what our public we have learned to become accustomed to is to reach a tertiary center time. That you have a fever, you have a cough, go to your district hospital, go to your multi-specialty hospital, which probably is not the best way to function in a healthcare system. If we have a primary healthcare system, how
Correct.
can we further leverage that system to ensure it functions properly and the deserving person gets the treatment at the right time?
And the same quality of service, right? The same quality of service is taken right down to the smallest hospice, perhaps.
Correct. True, true. So, hiring and training of existing medical staff, and to ensure more people join the system, work for the rural folk, get incentivized better. They need to get that motivation to work in the rural sector, which everyone naturally would not have that as an inbuilt feeling. I would want to contribute.
Correct.
It is something which probably has to be incentivized over time, and people have to be given that, have to be shown that there are so and so benefits, perks of working in the rural side, and utilizing the existing manpower who are existing within the healthcare ecosystem in your village to further develop your system, strengthen your public health.
Absolutely. So it's also like the perception that being a rural doctor is not somewhere lower in the rung. At the same time, it's an external perception. But the other thing is also perhaps financially help them a little more, so that they don't feel that they're going in for a lower salary, and hence the quality of their life is going to be affected, right? So it's multiple ways that we can. That is beautifully said. But thank you so much, Pawan. It's been amazing talking to you, because most of us, when we hear about stories of rural area, we've, especially COVID and post-COVID, hopefully, we have only seen the fact that, the rural India has not been that affected. It seems to be very healthy and all. But I think we need somebody on the ground, literally eyes on the ground, which tells us that these are so many challenges to make sure the rural India is healthy. And perhaps a lot more of us have to sort of network and get involved in a very small way, whichever way we can. Not all of us can contribute the way everybody can, but the small contributions are the ones that actually add up in the end. So, but thank you so much, and it's phenomenal work that you all are doing. There's just thanks that we can say from our end, but we're just so glad you took time and joined us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.